Welcome back to Talks with Tal, the podcast with real conversations that break down how different businesses actually work.
There's really no such thing as job security. I mean, I hate to burst your bubble, really no such thing because we are just a number until our number is up. I have been laid off 6 times in my career. And so every single time that happened, there's this mix of emotions from anger, frustration. Why me? I've been so loyal. I've done all the things. And now here you are handing me a pink slip.
Welcome back to Talks with Tal, the podcast with real conversations that break down how different businesses actually work. Today's guest is Tenisha Barnes. She's an HR executive with over 10 years in corporate America, and this conversation goes really deep. We talk about what HR really does behind the scenes, why having a seat at the table isn't a given, it's created, and why job security is one of the biggest myths in corporate life. Tenisha shares what 6 layoffs taught her and why low ticket entrepreneurship felt like another job, and how shifting to high ticket affiliate marketing has helped her think more in the long term instead of just paycheck to paycheck. So if you're a corporate mom questioning stability, time, and what's next, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Okay, Tanisha, welcome to Talks with Tal. So happy to have you here. Before we get into everything that you're building right now, I really want people to understand your background, right? So you've been in HR for a long time. So let's just start there. How did you come into HR? What was your path and what made you stay in it?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Tal. It's funny because I actually did not start in HR. I started in finance. And I knew immediately that finance was not going to be a long-term career path for me because I love to experience different things every day because there's never a dull moment in human resources. But it's also about the people. You can't get anything done without working through people and working with people. And it's important for me to also empower, educate, and help people understand how they fit in the bigger picture when they're working in a corporation. And so, people always think employee relations, they have a negative connotation to that, but employee relations can be a positive thing. When you're helping people with career development, when you help people work through different problems and conflicts and conversations, that's where the impact resides for me. And seeing folks come on out on the other side of whatever is not going correctly for them, if they're a leader of people, or just trying to find their niche in the organization and what their career path looks like. That's where I fell in love with the space of human resources because it's about the human side of people. It's dealing with people, it's helping people, it's empowering people, it's supporting people. And that's why I did an immediate switch from finance
Yeah.
to human resources because it's been a great career, 10 plus years, and that's the reason why I made that pivot in my career.
That's interesting. Did you have like any person that was like an example for you that you were like, oh yeah, I really want to do what he's doing or what she's doing? Like, was there like a mentor for you?
Not exactly. When I realized that I didn't really want to stick with finance for the rest of my life, what I did was I volunteered in the HR department of the company that I was working for. And I saw how the HR manager just had the opportunity to do so many different things on a given day. Like it wasn't just spreadsheets and balance sheets day in and day out. And so I saw how he was able to help people, empower them and just really do different things, whether it's training, whether it's career development, whether it's, helping people through crucial conversations. And I was like, I could actually do this. Like, I am in the business of helping people and making a difference. And so that's really what opened my eyes up to doing something different outside of finance is actually volunteering and see a day in the life. And so I made it my life.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. So let's go into that day in a life. Like what would for someone who has no idea what human resources is or what the daily tasks are or whatever, or maybe they are in a current job situation and there's an HR department, but they don't really even know how to utilize that. Like let's wait on answering that and let's first start off with kind of what your day-to-day actually looks like. Or
So
maybe
every
week to
day,
week.
Yeah, so every day is different, but it typically entails, working with some leader through an employee situation. And doesn't necessarily always have to be something negative. It could be helping them talk through a career planning conversation. It could be helping them navigate someone that's not performing. You never know. But outside of that, there's always some type of HR process or HR planning that's happening throughout the year, whether it's merit, whether it's mid-year reviews, whether it's compensation, performance management, training. There's always some part of the HR cycle that's going on throughout the year. And so that's where I have an opportunity to work with senior leaders to make sure that they understand what their expectations are for that particular period. Let's just say performance review time. And so we would do like a training to remind our managers what the process is, what the expectation is. We do role plays from time to time. And so the idea is for them to really show up as the best leaders for their employees. And I get to be a partner to that to ensure that they are showing up for their employees, but I also need to show up for them so that they can step into that leadership role that we expect them to step into and do it to the best of their ability because they are the face of their employees. But I'm that partner that allows them to be able to really execute on our processes the way that they need to be so that their employees get 100% of what they deserve when it comes to career support, performance management support, etc.
Wow, see, that's really, really interesting to me because I remember way back in the day when I was doing the whole 9 to 5 thing. I was actually in retail, and I remember in the last 9 to 5 I had was retail, and I remember there was an HR department. And I never really understood what that meant. The only time I knew what it was when I was being called in and we were discussing something of a sale that I had made, or, how to improve this, that, what, and the other, or, schedule shifts, or any those kinds of things. Like I never really thought of it as a person who's like the liaison with leadership. And so I'm kind of glad. I mean, and that's just, me being not fully educated in the world of human resources. But I find that quite fascinating because I really honestly just straight up, and I know there are a lot of people that are watching this also that probably also have met with HR departments also, and that is their number one impression of what happens in there. So I really like to hear a little bit more about how that leadership goes. So are you the one that's also, if say management comes to you or the CEO comes to you and say, listen, this is the direction that we want to take this company in. Um, I need to find training opportunities for my staff, for my crew, in order to help level up their skills or stuff like that. Is that something that's also falling under your envelope?
Yeah, so in my capacity as a HR business partner, I am the HR point person for my client group. And so anytime we need to address whether it's compensation, employee relations, training, whatever, I'm that point person. So I would then work with our training team to say, okay, so this is the directive. This is what I know my team needs. So let's talk about what resources we have available, or we may need to talk about outsourcing that to get what it is that they need. Because I'm the only person that knows my client group enough to tell training to say, yes, this will work, or no, this won't work. And
Mhm.
so that's what the role of the HR business partner is, to know what your client needs are, what their strengths, their opportunities, and then you help figure out what's going to work best from a resource standpoint. So in this example for training, if they came to me and said, here are the resources that are available, will this fit with your client group based on the objective at hand? I can either say yes, no, or here's how we need to tweak it to best meet my client's needs.
Oh, I like that. That's, yeah, very valid. I love that. So what what would you say is like the hardest part of being, a team leader in this department?
Um, So I'm not the team lead, I'm their partner. And
Okay.
so I would say that making sure that they understand the role that we play. In different organizations, HR plays a different role,
Mhm.
and what we call they may or may not have a seat at the table.
Mhm.
And so the HR function can be a respected function, or it can be a function that's not respected depending on where you work. And so sometimes, depending on the organization that you work in, there may be this expectation that HR is the afterthought, if you will. So they're brought in after decisions have already been made
Mm,
or after we've already done what we weren't supposed to do, and then we bring HR in to clean up the mess.
fix
On the
it.
other side, HR can be a partner, a proactive partner where they are part of the discussions, where they're the part of the decision making, where they are part of things up front so that we keep ourselves out of trouble and we
Mm.
mitigate risk. And so I think the hardest part is when you accept an opportunity in whatever organization is making sure that you make that seat at the table. No matter what the expectation is of the HR function currently, you position yourself to make that seat, to let them know what it is that you do, how you help support, and that you are a partner, not an afterthought.
Oh, snap. That's so good. So that leads me into the question of, if you had known how to navigate this kind of career for best results for your clients, what do you wish you had learned earlier that you now know now after 10 years of experience? Like, what were some of the things that you started off in the beginning years that you're like, gosh, had I known that this is how I should have been directing this kind of concept or whatever, I would have done it differently.
I think what I just said is probably the thing that most people, when you're new in the function, don't really think about because just because you don't technically have a seat at the table doesn't mean that you can't create that seat. And when you're just starting out, really junior, you're not really sure like where you can push back or where you can have that posture and hold your own, and where you can say, well, no, this is not what we're doing, this is why we're doing it this way, and let me tell you why. And so I probably didn't start developing that posture probably until mid-career, and understanding the fact that you have to make that seat if they have this envision that HR is like the party planner, or HR just kind of comes in and cleans up the mess. And so I think I would, if I had to share one piece of advice to anyone coming into the function, is establish your position early on. No matter what the current, I guess, appetite is for HR in your organization, you make that seat. You show them why the function is important, and you show them what you can bring to the table. So then the function is respected, whether you are there for 20 plus years or whether you leave within a year, you set the expectation of how the function is to operate and how the function is to partner. And we're not that afterthought that happens in, quite frankly, a lot of organizations that I've worked for in the past.
That's solid stuff, Tanisha. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know that there are people that are sort of wondering if they want to make that switch also. Like, say they're also in the finance department, they're like, it's not really hitting me where I really want to be. What you're basically telling them is to come in with full confidence, knowing that they are the ones to actually guide the CEOs and the managers and so forth in really helping them structure a successful human resources department so that their business can thrive and they can get to the goals that they're really striving for. That's really good. Confidence, you guys, confidence. Got to nail it in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
beautiful. So let's lighten it up a little bit. I don't know if you have this. I'm going to ask you off the cuff, but let's see if you have like give me like a funny scenario, like something that you've experienced over the 10 years that I don't know, was like the most ridiculous request that you've heard, or a question that an employee had asked, and you're like, are you seriously asking me that? Like, is that like a real question? I don't know. Share something. Share something. We want to hear some stories.
Um, the most crazy request that we typically get is typically around time off, right? Because everybody wants to take vacation. And we had one particular employee who, and this is the manager coming to me, not the employee coming to me directly, but the manager asked me, he says, well, Johnny, is asking if he can take an additional week of vacation off. He's already used his vacation in the first 3 months of the year, but he wants to go into the negative because he has one more trip that he wants to take. Are we allowed to do that? And clearly the answer is no. We have a lot of vacation for a reason, and people don't just get to ask for extra time just because they've spent it all up and they didn't manage it appropriately. I mean, you have someone who's used 3 weeks of vacation already in the first 3 months of the year, and then they decide, oh, there's something else I want to do in the latter part of the year. Can I get an extra week? No, you've only been here for 2 years. You
Mhm.
get the 3 weeks, and that's it. And so it's funny how, as adults, we sometimes don't think that, hey, like we still have to plan accordingly in a
Mhm.
place of business the same way we would in our personal life. And you don't just get to ask for random things just because you didn't do your due diligence.
Yeah, interesting because a lot of people would always think then that the boss or the HR department that you guys are the bad ones, right? You're the bad people. You just don't understand. You won't let them live their life and everything. But when you think about it on the corporate side of it, they signed a contract that they agreed to have this certain amount of days off, regular bank days or whatever, and these certain amount of days for vacation time. And so it's really difficult and I know this personally. It's difficult to plan out a whole year structured around these specific dates because things come up and there's a wedding that's popped up that it's your best friend and you really want to go and then you're the loser that doesn't get the time off to go. And so what do, right? Then you call in your sick days or whatever, but everybody already knows that you're going off to this wedding. So it becomes a real challenge. And I bet you kind of wish that people just sort of took a step back and sort of understand that there are two sides to the scale, that corporate isn't the bad person, that they actually did agree to this kind of situation and this kind of position and this kind of obligation. It's kind of like going into parenting. We kind of agreed. We didn't know what we signed up
Absolutely.
for, but it is what it is, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can't just break the rules just because on a whim you decided to take an extra vacation in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So you've got a lot of clarity on what it's taken to build a career in this field, and you're successful with it, you're sought after for it. And with the kind of experience that you have comes that clarity, right? Of knowing exactly how you want to position yourself, where you want to position yourself, what your personal goals are, and so forth. So with that, I'd love to transition into what prompted you to start exploring options outside of the corporate world, and what processes would look like for you, what that would, let's go into that. So so go for it. I'm
Yeah, I
mumbling.
mean, you know, we all have different seasons in our life, right? Where, what we thought we wanted previously is not what we want now. And what we want now is probably not what we think we want in the future, right? And
Mhm.
so, when we think about seasons, we think about, our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, right? And before, I entered into the season of motherhood, I had pretty much all the time in the world. I didn't have much responsibility. Working a job was the best thing since sliced bread. I was making money, putting that money in my bank account. Life was great. But when you move into a different season called motherhood, your priorities shift. What was important in your 20s is now no longer important in your 30s, or as important in your 30s. And what you value changes. And so when we think about time, right, we spend the majority of our life at a job. The majority of our time is going to work, coming back home. That's 5 days a week. We get 2 days on the weekend to ourselves. And so when you think about this season of parenthood, because I can be speaking to mothers or fathers, you know, that time becomes more precious. It's not just, out going to parties and staying up all night and watching movies. Like you now have a whole human that you're responsible for. And you want to be the person that's taking care of them. You want to be the one spending the time. You don't want to be shuttling them off to daycare, if you don't have to. And so when I moved into this new season, I said, you know what? I don't know that spending another 30 to 35 years in this same routine is going to work for me because now I have humans that I need to take care of, that I want to spend time with, that are my responsibility. And it doesn't come second to the job. And so I found myself in this place of, all right, I still have to provide, but I still want to spend time with them. And so I know there's another way around this because I'm not the first person that became a mother in this world. So clearly there are other options out there. And that's when I told myself, it's time to make a pivot. It's time to explore other options. It's time to figure out how essentially I can have my cake and eat it too. Because I mean, we can, as long as we decide to, one, figure out a way that's going to allow us to sustain what we want. It fits into what we're already doing and it makes sense for the season that we're in.
Yeah, well said. I like that compartmentalized it into seasons because you're absolutely right, and I think that it goes for men and women as well, that your 20s, you're in your exploratory phases and you're loving on your career and you're taking all your vacation time and you're blowing all of your money, right? And then some people are, of course, really smart and investing their money at an early age. In your 30s, though, you go into this whole new season where there tends to be partnership, unity, or marriage. Um, and then there's parenting, there's motherhood. That's like a big, huge capsule. And I don't think, especially as women, I mean, I won't speak for men because I'm not a man, but I'll speak for women. I don't think that we truly understand what it means to have a full-on career that we're also still trying to build, right? Because we're not done when just because we're having kids. We're kind of just taking a little sabbatical, but we still want to continue building. But then there comes a point where we realize that the real build, the real work, the real effort is really in raising these humans that we've brought into the world to be better people than we are ourselves. And that becomes the higher calling rather than the career. So I know that you started off in the low ticket space. You started off with an MLM. And so what was that like? I mean, you're already in a very busy in the corporate world and in human resources, handling all of that day-to-day stuff, not being with your family. And then you went and added in something else when you come home. Like how did that work?
Yeah, so, when I first found out about online marketing, which, it was a surprise to me that it even existed.
Mm,
I kind of jumped on the first thing that I saw that made sense to me. Personally, I have an affinity for skincare.
mm,
And so I was like, why not, be a part of something that's going to allow me to work on my own skincare, but
mm,
also make a little bit of money. And that really was the goal, right? It was supposed to be for that, emergency fund, if something happened fund, a little bit extra money here and there. That was the initial goal. Because as you know, kids are not cheap. And, there are other things that I like to do with my time that involve my own passions, whether it's traveling, just, having a night out with hubby, just having a disposable fund, if you will. And so, it was great until it wasn't, because what I found was that it was creating a second job for me. And that's not really what I wanted. The return on my time wasn't really there. And so I felt like while I may be adding a couple $100 here and there, the time that I'm losing being as present as I want to be, it's not balancing out. And so I realized that while online marketing may be a vehicle, low ticket is not the right vehicle to make sure that I'm not only building that fund, but also not taking that time away from my kids that I wanted. And so, as I got a little bit older, my mindset shifted from, do I really want to spend, extra hours in the week to make a couple $100s? Or
mm,
do I want to spend a couple extra hours in the week to make 4 and 5 figures? And so
mm,
I was like, I've seen other moms put in like part time hours, bringing in more commission than I am, because right now all I'm doing is put money in the gas tank, maybe
Mm,
paying an electric bill. And I
mm,
was like, well, why would I want to put in extra hours in the week just to pay a bill when I could pay a mortgage? So
mm,
for me, I was like, they might be onto something. And so I was like, okay, so I made the pivot once. It's okay to pivot a second time when
mhm,
what you're doing is no longer serving you. And
mm,
that's when I was introduced to this space called high profit or high ticket affiliate marketing.
mhm,
And, initially I was like, do I have what it takes to make another pivot? Am I going to be wasting my time? Should I just go with what I know because I'm already comfortable? I'm in this groove. I already know what I'm doing.
mm,
Or do I think long term because these babies aren't going to be babies for forever?
mhm.
And as my family grows, as the season evolves, what I need financially, what I need from a time perspective is going to shift. And so I had to start thinking about the future and not just the right now. And I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of us, and I'm just going to speak for the collective,
Yeah,
working parents, it's hard to get out of thinking about the right now because we're in it.
yeah,
But if we take the time to think about the future and we kind of reverse engineer, okay, so, like, my kid's going to be in college in the next 5 to 10 years. Do I want to keep collecting gas money and electric bill money, or do I want to start earning mortgage money so
mm,
that 5 to 10 years from now, I'm not incurring college loan debt, in order to send her to school. And so I had to really shift my mindset. I mean, you already have to shift your mindset from employee to entrepreneur anyway. But
mhm.
when you truly want to come up with a vehicle that's going to sustain you long term, that's going to create leverage, that's where you truly have to shift your mindset and not think about just the now, but think about the future as well.
Yeah, solid stuff. I would say also that that this is also the space having that know that you have to start thinking about the long term. I love that you're bringing that up, because a lot of women sort of get stuck in their place of where they are right now, and they can only see the now as their future, but they
Hmm.
don't really understand what that sacrifice looks like. They kind of
Right.
feel like they've been floating along with their 9 to 5s or floating along with their brick and mortar business for so long that they really get stuck in their head and they can't really see what the other vision could look like. And the world is changing. It changes every day, and we're evolving super fast. I mean, when you think about AI, goodness gracious, it changes on the daily, it changes on the hourly. Like it just keeps. We're right now in a 5.2 version of ChatGPT. Like, it's like, and it just started. Like, I feel like ChatGPT just came on board a couple of years ago. Like, how are we in a 5.2 version, So it's also a part of thinking ahead also means, opening yourself up to the constant change in how the world is being run and being flexible and knowing that everything isn't forever. So you have to have a system that works in that flexibility,
Hmm.
that moves and grows with the flow kind of thing, So I love that you brought in that think for the future. I mean, when I started, also, I started in low ticket as well. And I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I really literally was only thinking in the current and in the now. And it wasn't until a few years in that I realized this is not going to help me with college for my
Right.
kids. This is not going to help me with home health care for my mom. This is not going to help me with taking my husband and traveling the world. Like this is only helping me with that current bill, like you said, at paying the gas or paying that one bill. That's all that this is really helping me for. And so you get to that point where that light bulb goes off and you're like, ooh, another pivot is on its way. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think the
want to tie
one
this.
question
Uh-huh,
I
go
think
ahead.
the one question that you have to ask yourself is what I'm doing right now sustainable for the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm,
Because a lot of people get so accustomed to what they're doing and maybe right, the money's great, it's coming in, But then you have to really look at how are you actually spending your days and your time and your hours? And are you willing to do this same amount of activity for 10 more years? Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, I don't want to do the same thing that I'm doing right now for 10 more years because I want it to be able to run without me. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you don't have systems in place to be able to run a business so that you can remove yourself, but it's still operational and you're still bringing in residual income, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem for me. Because I want to be somewhere on somebody's beach with, you know, a cocktail in my hand, being able to relax and still have a business that's scaled, that's working in the background. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so important that we think about what are the things that you are okay with doing now and what are you not okay with doing 10 years from now, and how you can you position yourself and set yourself up so that you can create this life of ease and flow while
Mm-hmm.
you have something running in the background that's continuously bringing in that residual income that you know that you want and desire.
Yeah, yeah, like that. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what that job security would look like. I mean, you're in corporate and we still it still feels recent that we had this whole world shutdown. And so what was the job security for you then versus having your own business? What would that job security look like? Because a lot of people are also intimidated by jumping into something of their own, that there's their own business, because they're like, I like the stability of what I get with my job. I like that I get the salary. I like that I get the benefits, and the stability is what they're addicted to. So, what would be your response to that?
Yeah, so there's really no such thing as job security. I mean, I hate to burst your bubble if you're tuning in right now and you love your corporate job, but there's really no such thing because, if you really think about it, we, I'm talking about the collective of people who are still working a 9 to 5, we are just a number until our number is up. I have been laid off 6 times in my career. I started right in corporate right after I got out of school. So you can do the math on how long I've been in corporate. But I've been laid off 6 times. And so every single time that happened, there's this mix of emotions from anger, frustration. Why me? I've been so loyal. I've done all the things. And now here you are handing me a pink slip.
Mhm.
And the only thing you get is business decision.
Mm,
We've changed direction.
mm,
That's all you get. And so I got to the point where probably around the third one where I said, you know what, enough is enough. I'm
mm,
no longer going to be treated like a number. If I were to get laid off again, I'm going to have an exit strategy so that I don't have to go through this feelings, these emotions. Now,
mm,
obviously, I'm still going to be mad,
mhm,
but it's not like my whole world has collapsed because I know that I'm setting myself up for something bigger and better. But
mhm,
there's really no such thing as security. Unfortunately, coming from an HR professional, when a business decides to shift direction, when a business can no longer afford to pay the people that they have because the numbers are not coming in, when the market changes, when competition comes in, there's so many different external factors that we cannot control. The only thing that you can control is how you're positioning yourself outside of the job that you do not own.
mm,
And so that is why around that third one, like I said, that third layoff, I decided to move into entrepreneurship because I knew that I'd always be my own boss. I'd always come up with a way to create additional income, if I needed, an emergency fund or I needed to send my kids to college. Like putting all your eggs in one basket is the quickest way to burn out, stress, and
mhm,
just increase financial anxiety. And
mhm,
so for the people who love their job, you can love the mess out of your job, but you need to have something else. You
yeah,
have to have something else. Coming from someone that has been through so many different downsizings is so smart to be building something of your own that nobody can take away. And
mhm,
knowing that you have the opportunity to say one day, you know what, I'm done with this.
mm,
You can continue to lay people off. The government can get shut down. We could have hopefully, we don't have another 2020. But
mm,
there's so many things that we can't control in this economy. But the one
mhm,
thing that you can control is how you position yourself to have more financial stability. And that's not going to happen in a job.
Yeah, I think people need to hear that again. The only thing that you can control is how you position yourself.
Hmm.
Independence is key.
Yeah.
And to have something, anything, it could be an online business, it could be investments, it could be real estate, whatever it is, you have to have that exit plan. You have to have that backup because I remember, I mean, people were kind of like how iguanas are falling out of the tree right now in Florida because it's so cold out there. Like everyone was just falling out of their jobs. It was just boom, 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 just falling flat on the ground, and no one had any plans. No one had any direction. And so it was kind of a detrimental time, but also a really great lesson to a lot of people to understand that, you know, nothing is forever and nothing is guaranteed, only what you can control. So I'm really glad that you brought up that lesson. I also want to say, you know, when it comes to in the high ticket space, it does require a different level of mindset. And a lot of people come in not quite understanding what that means. And, you know, that takes some training. It takes getting into the rooms with people who are more successful at this than you are, and really staying coachable and learning and really starting to level up your mindset in how you see things differently, how you think about things, how you plan your things, how you even do your regular job on a day-to-day basis. So how has having this format of business, how has this made you as a human resources manager? How has that made you elevated in your workspace, in your professional life?
I actually look at the high ticket space similar to what I do in my profession as an HR professional, because when you move into the high ticket space, it's really about being that consultant. You are trying to uncover what that individual's problem is so that you can provide a solution, which is similar to what we do in human resources. When a manager comes to me with a problem about an employee, I'm asking the who, what, when, where, why, and how, so that I can then help him come to a solution to the problem, because we don't always give out the answers. We help them come to the answer on their own, which is similar in the high ticket space. So when someone comes to me and they have, whether it's a financial problem, a health problem, whatever the case may be, I'm essentially trying to diagnose how I can help. What have you tried before? What skills do you have?
Mhm.
What is your tolerance for risk? So we're asking these questions to help understand the root problem, to ensure that the offer or the services that I provide will be a solution for them. And so they kind of work hand in hand, because when you're truly kind of serving in that capacity of a problem solver instead of just trying to sell something to somebody, you're truly in this mode of being a servant leader. You're truly in this mode of really wanting to make an impact, and really trying to make a difference. And that's really how I see myself in my HR profession, because I'm there to support the people, but also the business. But when it comes to coaching, and providing that support, I serve in that same capacity as a consultant. And so you're diagnosing problems and you're offering solutions. And we do that every day in the high ticket space. When people come to us and, whether they are in debt, whether they are trying to provide a better life for their family, whether they are trying to reduce financial anxiety because they don't even know how they're going to be able to pay their bill in the next month. Whatever the case may be, we are here to help bridge the gap from where they are to where they want to be with the offering that we have. And we just ask the right questions to make sure that it's a right fit. And so I see them kind of the same, if you will. The benefit, though, one allows me to be able to control the hours that I work, the people that I work with, the job, of course, can be gone tomorrow.
Mhm.
And so, again, I'll reiterate, you have to be able to leverage a vehicle that's going to allow you to help people make an impact with something that you can control, that you
Mhm.
can grow long term, that you can decide how many hours you want to put in or not put in, but it's something that you own, that can't be taken away from you, and
Mhm.
you still have the ability to make an impact.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're also, I know that your niche is really to focus in on those corporate moms, and I'm sure that you have a lot of experience in that in that field. And so, you know, let's say you're talking to that mom right now who is hearing everything that you're saying, who's totally picking up everything you're putting down about how being your own boss is the way to go, and how to really start thinking about the long term of, how you're spending your time and so forth, and the worth of it, and all of that. Like, what, let's say that that mom is really considering everything that you're saying, and they decide, okay, Tanisha, I hear what you're saying, and yeah, okay, I'm open to hearing more about having my own high ticket affiliate franchise. Um, what's the first piece of advice you want to give them, once they start? Like, because it can be a really big, overwhelming, and sort of also scary and intimidating area if you've never explored this before. A lot of people do come in from the lower ticket space, so they kind of get it. But this is the mom that you're talking to right now, who is on that high level already, who does deal with high level partnerships in the corporate world and so forth, and understands that, yeah, this is not going to, I can't count on this, because what I need, you're right, I need to do something that I can do for myself long term, that's going to carry me through for college and so forth. What would you suggest to them as their first
So,
start?
first and foremost is knowing what you want.
Mm,
I can count on my hand how many times I've had conversations with women who don't even know what it is that they want, right? So, that's the first question that I ask people when we're on a discovery call. What is your goal? In order for me to help you, I have to know what it is that you are looking to accomplish. Is it that you want to retire in the next 5 years? Is it that you want to get out of debt? Is it that you want to, help people in orphanages? Is it that you want to travel more? Like, what do you want? Because if you don't know what you want, I can't help you get there. So, first, we start with the goals. So, what are your goals? That's number one. Number two, how much time are you willing to dedicate to accomplish your goals? Because time is the only constant in life.
mm,
And how we spend it will determine if we get to the goal or if we don't get to the goal. But
mm,
unfortunately, when you are an entrepreneur, you are in control of how you spend your day,
mm,
but you also have to be committed to the goal no matter what. And so, yes, we can run this business in part time hours, but it starts with you developing a standard of what you're willing to sacrifice and let go of that's no longer serving you, that's not going to allow you to get to that goal. So, doom scrolling on the internet, watching TV, endless reruns, you know, that's not going to get you to your goal.
mm,
Um, just doing things that have nothing to do with progressing you towards the future that you said that you wanted. So that's number two. Because if you're not committed to your goals, I can't be committed to your goals more than you are.
right.
That's number two. Number three is, truly understanding that you have to give yourself grace. As a working mom, working dad, I'll just say working parents, we already have a lot on our plate.
Mhm,
And it's okay to say, you know what? I might not get that laundry done today,
mhm,
but it will get done.
mhm,
We're not expecting perfection by any means. What we
mhm,
are expecting is for people to figure out how to do this within the confines of the life that they already have. You're not creating a second job. You're not creating a list on top of the list that you already have. You're figuring out how to incorporate that in your current lifestyle so that it doesn't feel like a big to do. So,
mhm,
for example, for me, it's important for me to get my workout in every single day. It's also important that I'm able to articulate how I'm able to make this work as a working mom to other working moms. And
mhm,
so I'll have conversations with other moms on my lunch break,
mhm,
or on my way home because I'm just sitting in traffic, riding in the car, right? And so you find ways to really be able to execute on the things that are important that are going to move your business forward within your daily life. I'm not staying up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning working the business. I'm doing that as part of my daily routine. So if I don't work out, I can't show up as my best self. And so I make sure that that's prioritized at the top of the day. And
Mhm.
so there are different activities that I do throughout the day that move my business forward, where that's talking to other working moms who are curious about creating a business, whether it's creating content about my life that I'm already living, like
Mhm.
I'm not doing anything extra.
Mhm.
Um, and so the goal is for you to be you. We don't want you to act as if you're an influencer. We don't want you to act like somebody that you're not. The goal is for you to be yourself so that you can show other people that you can run a business, you can be a working mom, you can do this in part time hours within the confines of your current day without it having to feel like a second job. The goal is authenticity, but the goal is also to do it unapologetically. Because if you have a goal, you have a vision for what you know you deserve, you have to be willing to throw out the things like the scrolling and the TV and the things that are not serving you in order to get to that goal. And so those would probably be the top three things for me is what do you want? What are you willing to sacrifice to get there? And then truly being authentically you so that you
Mhm.
can show other people or other moms, other parents that it's possible and you don't have to come up with this fake facade. You don't have to be someone else that you're not. You don't have to put on a show. We are just real, everyday working moms, working parents who know that we don't have to subscribe to societal's narrative of their work, eat, sleep, repeat for the next 40 years. We don't have to just be moms. We can pursue our passions, we can run a business, we can be mothers, we can do all the things so long as we bet on ourselves and we believe that it's possible to do it.
I can't touch that. I cannot touch that. That was
Sorry, it's
so
long-winded.
beautifully said. Beautiful. Like I could sit here and just listen to you all night long. This is so, I mean, Tanisha, I know that you've really helped educate a lot of people. You've really helped open up a lot of minds to really think about things and see things differently. And I want to thank you so much, Tanisha, for sharing your story and your perspective so openly and so naturally. You really do have a wonderful way of really speaking exactly what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what the real true story is behind everything that you've experienced. So I want you to know that I really appreciate everything that you've shared today. And I'm sure anyone that's listening would also agree with it. So if you are listening, thank you for spending this time with us on Talks with Tal. This is the podcast where we have real conversations that break down just how differently businesses actually work. And if this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, give it a like, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. All right. So until next time, walk good and take care. Okay, wow. Thank you so much for spending the time with me on Talks with Tal. If this conversation resonated with you, I would love for you to subscribe. And if you're curious about learning more about starting your own high ticket affiliate marketing business, you can send me a message with the word conversation. So take care. Bye for now. Mwah.